Hey y'all, and welcome back to Bleducation, where we teach you about people you should know or teach you more about the people you already know about. I'm Tamia, and this is my co-host.
I am Brando from the Bando. All right. All right, let's
Lies.
get
Lies.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm from the suburbs. It's okay. It's okay. All right. What are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about a little bit of everything, to be honest with y'all. We're going to touch on some James Baldwin. We're going to talk about some Richard Wright, and we're going to spin off and talk about how that impacts what we digest in our media, whether that be like reading, TV, and things like that, how we process Black trauma, and how we look at this white savior complex in some media forms. Yeah, it's a lot, but we're going to get y'all started with the conflict that we see happen between Richard Wright and James Baldwin. But before we get into that a little bit, I am going to give y'all a little bit of background about the both of them. So they actually lead like very similar lives, I would say. We see them both growing up in the United States. Richard Wright is coming from Mississippi. James Baldwin is coming from Harlem, a product of the Harlem Renaissance and the Great Migration. We love that. We love that. But we're going to see both of them, right? Both of them growing up in the United States, and as they get older and start dealing with like certain types of discrimination and things like that within the United States, they're going to move and migrate actually to France, where they will both be laid to rest eventually. But what we see happen is Richard Wright is going to be most notably known for his work with Native Son, okay?
Yes.
And that's going to be a big conflict between him and James Baldwin, because James Baldwin didn't like a lot of the representation of Black people within his novel. So that is where we're going to see them come to a head. And for those of you that don't know, I know he's a very common name, but James Baldwin is another writer, specifically, again, known for his work in Harlem and once he reaches France. But most notable, Notes of a Native Son, where he is critiquing Richard Wright.
Drags him.
I mean, just
as he should.
right? By the scout
as
type
he should.
information.
That book is like terrible. I can't. All right. Just to give a quick little background about Native Son, so Native Son focuses on the protagonist. His name is Digger Thomas, and he is like this young black man who is just very frustrated with being in poverty. Mm-hmm. And there's this push or this theme of like Black people are just poor, and typically when they're in that situation, they can't get out of that situation. Mm-hmm. So throughout the book, he just kind of encounters white people, and the white people are just kind of portrayed as like these nice people. He goes to work for this family, and they're portrayed as like these nice and innocent people. And he just continues to kind of be frustrated, and he's talking about like potentially like robbing them with his friends and different things like that. So it's just kind of like Richard Wright kind of puts, it's just the way that he has Black people responding to whiteness. And he eventually, Bigger Thomas just does like a series of like all these violent things. And it kind of stems from his frustration of where he is in society. And James Baldwin drags him, rightfully so, because it's like, I mean, like, yeah, like he's poor, but like, did you really have to like go and portray the protagonist as like this violent Black man? Is that what we really needed?
Right. And what
it's just
white
like,
people see.
And one of the things that James Baldwin says is like his audience couldn't have been for Black people, because like the way that Richard Wright spends so much time like showcasing or discussing what poverty looks like for Black people. Like most Black people at the time were poor. So it's like, then you're not telling them nothing they don't already know. So It's like, so obviously his target audience was white people. And I think Richard Wright may have been like, oh, I don't want to push it too far. So it's considered like a literary success. Yeah. But he literally made Black people kind of look bad, or like he kind of capitalized on the fact that Black people go through all these things or whatever like that. And then in the end, the Black person, the main character, does all these violent things, and he doesn't end up in a better position than what he was in, at the beginning of the novel. So there's really no growth for the character. And James Baldwin, one thing he says is like, a Bigger Thomas is not even like a protagonist. He represents like a stereotype of Black people. So when I think about stuff like even like with Birth of a Nation, that really like focused on Black violence and that was almost single-handedly one of the reasons why the KKK had their second emergence, you know? So it's just like, Richard Wright, like, do better. Like, why did you not do better? Like, why did you not do better?
Fun fact, Birth of the Nation was like one of the first movies ever shown on the White House lawn. Incredibly racist. Woodrow why would he do that?
Said it was a great film.
Like, he recommended it to anybody. That is my favorite fact to share about either Woodrow Wilson or just the fact movies in general, because why would you do that? That is an incredibly racist movie, and why would you put it on anybody's front lawn?
Yeah, so James Baldwin, and the great thing about this is that they were contemporaries and they were also friends. And so
at some point.
So I wonder if James Baldwin was like, I am gonna drag you.
Actually, I have a whole book dedicated to the things I hate about Sherbrooke.
Why did you think this was okay? Like, why?
But I think, so I have to be very honest in saying I've actually never read Native Son. I was really relying on him to give me the rundown. He did a great job, but he told me more before this. But when I heard about this, what I wanted to talk about is just the issue of showcasing Black trauma within film. And then on top of that, having that white savior, or having somebody that is white in a film that is above the main character who's Black, and just doing all these different things, and the layers that you see when race comes into play with media, and not only just like movies, but within books, within plays, all types of arts that is expressive. And one of the big things that we see James critique is kind of the stereotypes that are put in place. So when I was doing my master's degree, I actually did a paper on Black stereotypes. And so it's the Jezebel, the mammy figure, things like that. And so I think it's really interesting. Right. I think it's really interesting to watch how those things play out in modern media, because these stereotypes were set such a long time ago and they still follow us. Like, even thinking about a Medea character, right? Like, Medea is very much like a strong, independent Black woman, but she still has the body type of a mammy. She's still, at the end of the movie, she's the one bringing everybody in. If they need a place to stay, if they need food, she's feeding them. She still embodies a lot of these characteristics. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so interesting to see them kind of mold themselves into different things and kind of do spinoffs. And people don't even realize what they're looking at when they look at a figure like that,
Yeah. So I think when we talk about Black trauma as well, one of the things I think about are a lot of historical movies as well, like the Amistades, the 12 Years a Slave, the Birth of a Nation, the remake.
And why would you remake that?
Yeah,
who went and saw that?
And so for me, I'm kind of torn because I'm a huge history buff. So I have to watch all those movies, and I do. I have to watch them. I do. But it's just I also get why people are frustrated, where why can't we have a story where Black people are just successful and not having to deal with even when you look at something what's the movie where NASA
Hidden Figures.
Yes, Hidden Figures. Okay, yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of it at this time. Hidden Figures, even that that showcased Black excellence, right? Right. You still had a piece in there about how she had to run all the way to the other building to use the color sign, and then of course she has a white savior who comes in and knocks down the sign. And it's just what? And it's just why can't we have something where it's just showcasing Black people just being talented? Why is there always have to be something? And I get it. Obviously it's a part of history, right? But it's just can we tell a story? Or can there be a narrative pushed out there that showcases just Black people in a positive light without them having to have some kind of struggle to overcome?
Right. Just a feel-good movie that we can have and look at.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a bit of a hypocrite though, because so there are two different type of Black trauma films, right? You have the 12 Years a Slave, which I will be very honest, I made it through 45 minutes and I was gots to go. And then you also have things like Boys in the Hood. I love Boys in the Hood. Okay. That is my movie. I would watch. That is a classic. Or Minister Society. I will watch those movies. I can quote Minister Society backwards. No cap, that is my movie, right? I can watch those every single day over and over again. But those are Black trauma films, right?
Yeah.
Those are showcasing gang life, drugs, and even the split between a family. Looking at Boys in the Hood, right? Looking at the split between Ricky and his brother. It's they're showcasing that trauma that comes with it, and I can digest that, right?
Yeah.
But when I look at a 12 Years a Slave, you're gonna cut the movie off. I can't deal with when it comes to slavery and the atrocities that we see with slavery, it's so hard for me to digest those. And those are the movies you're going to see me advocating against. Like the 12 Years a Slave, when they came out with the Underground show, I refuse to even give it a chance because I loved it. Right, but I'm so tired of seeing the narrative of our people being enslaved, bro. Yeah. Like we know if they don't talk about anything else in the history class, they're gonna talk about slavery. You feel me? And it's like I'm personally tired of seeing that. Whereas when I look at it like a Boys in the Hood, I see my uncles, right? I see my cousins, I see my kinfolk. Like so. To me, that's way more relatable, and it's less about trauma and more about something that I can relate to. Whereas the 12 Years a Slave, it's like y'all just bringing up this trauma again and again. But I mean, for people like you can deal with period pieces like that.
So I try to look at it from an unbiased standpoint, and but there are times where I do have to pause, and I'm like, but then I'll go back and I don't know. I think, like I said, it's like a history thing. With history, there is inherent bias on one side, depending on who's telling the story, which is kind of like why we're doing this podcast in the first place to, tell another side to history. But I think that when we look at those movies as well, that you have to look at what the audience is like. I think I went to go see 12 Years a Slave in the theaters, and there was a whole bunch of white people in there, and I was like, okay. I was like, what? It was just there were black people in there, but it was a whole bunch of white people in there. So that makes me wonder, is our history a source of entertainment or
okay. Listen, because I've been trying to figure this out. I don't know if it's entertainment or guilt. Right?
Both of them suck.
Right. Either way, terrible, right? But so I interned in DC a few summers ago, and they had just built the African American museum there, and it's 6 floors, beautiful. If you have not been, please book a ticket, go. It is absolutely beautiful. Right. I went literally every weekend. I got a chance to go, and every time that I would go, so many white people there. And I remember my family came to visit me, and that was one of the things that I wanted us all to do together. And it was such a beautiful experience for us as black people to share together. And I remember this white woman ruining it because we were sitting there and they do little videos and stuff. We were sitting there looking at a little video, and she goes, "It's just so unfortunate. I hate that had to happen." And I was like, "Ma'am, the door." But it's they really feel like they're aiding us in something, or they're being a problem. Right. Bro, I was literally if you don't
performative, yes.
It's so
terrible. I got in trouble actually, since we're on the subject, I got in trouble a few years ago because I used to drag there is a particular person who he's white, and I don't want to say his name because I ain't trying to get sued. But there's a particular person who is white. He is Greek, so he's in a Black Letter Greek organization, and he speaks quite frequently on Black issues, and I feel like it's performative as shit because, obviously I don't know the man in real life, but I kind of feel like he goes viral, right, when he speaks on Black issues. And it's kind of okay, are you doing this now because you're going to get attention? Right. And who is your audience? Because because when I go and I look at the comments, I see a lot of Black people responding to you and oh yes, you totally get it, and blah blah blah. So I do feel sometimes Black people play a part in performative shit too. I just me, I'm the kind of person if a white person is out there and they're actually, doing something effective for the Black community, congratulations.
Right.
Thank you.
You don't
you do not there is still no invite to the cookout from me. There's not going to be an invite from me because to me, I feel you should be doing it anyway.
Absolutely.
But the bar is just so low. And it's just even with Black people, how we can put white people on a pedestal, especially white people that intentionally enter Black spaces and take up space in those spaces. That's just, I don't like it.
I think there's a really meshed line, I should say, between a white savior and then the whole performative thing. So
Yeah.
For me, the difference is like when you see performative allyship, those are going to be the people that are going to be out on the front lines and they want to do it, but you always want to have a camera in somebody's face, like, hey, did you see this thing I did?
Exactly.
You know, or they're going to be tweeting about, hey, I'm doing this at this time. Make sure y'all come through. And it's just a very thin line between that being a positive thing and then that being a thing that you're doing to get your attention. And then you have the white savior thing. White saviors to me are typically religious. They are typically the people that we see going on like mission trips and things like that. Like I have a girl that she graduated high school with me and she's dedicated, like she moved to Africa to help people, right? And it's like, in theory, that seems great, but she ends up moving back, right? And the whole time that she's back, she's talking about how she made such these great connections with the kids and they miss her so much and they've been writing her. And she went over there and created within these kids a white savior complex because she was the person that came in and made things great, which was great. But then you decided to leave them because that lifestyle wasn't built for you.
Right. And
like,
it's
like what did you get out of that?
You know, what's really crazy is that you heard of the show Atlanta, right?
Right.
Yeah. So actually, the third season just started, and the opening episode it showcases this white lesbian couple, and I believe it's based on a true story. Yeah. And this white lesbian couple, they adopted all these black kids, and then they ended up they were abusing them, and in their heads they're like saving them from whatever situation they were in. But essentially, they're putting them in a worse situation. And then I believe that they attempted to kill. I don't know what happened in real life, but I want to say that they actually did kill them.
Yeah, in real life, they actually did kill all of them.
Yeah, but in the Atlanta episode, all the kids ended up getting away. So I love the fact that they at least changed that narrative and didn't kill these kids, because that would have been more black trauma, essentially. When we talk about performative allyship, I just don't want white people to feel like it's okay to take up space in a black person in a black space, if you will. Yeah. And I think that was James Baldwin's main criticism too, with Richard Wright's Native Son, that you kind of created this okay for white people to feel good about themselves, and black people are really depicted in kind of like a negative light. And like you can, there's even some correlations with Uncle Tom's Cabin, which came out in the 1850s, and really just like has its own set of stereotypes as well.
We don't have time for that.
So not to say that white people shouldn't be like, fighting for equality and stuff like that, but recognize your privilege that you have. And then I also feel like white people weren't learned so much if they just took a step, shut up, and listen. Just if you're gonna come into the space, just like shut up and listen.
I think one of the biggest issues though is that they feel entitled to space. And I wish I could remember the name of the actual theory, but there's a theory and it's based on this idea that because white people have conquered everything, they feel like they have a space everywhere. So it's like they came to Africa, conquered our people, brought us here. Like you've seen them, imperialism, right? They're everywhere. So it's like because they have gone and placed their influence everywhere, they feel like they belong in every space, whether that be the smallest space or the biggest space. Like think about like Vietnam, right? The Korean War. None of that was our business, but they've placed themselves in a position of power, have placed themselves into all these spaces. And so even on a smaller scale, they feel entitled. Like think about
even gentrification, even like a lot of our major cities, and especially in urban areas, white people are coming into those spaces. And what's actually happening is an increase in conflict, because so you could have you could have Ray and them. They didn't live on the block the whole time. They have a block party or whatever that, right? And now that you have a white person that's moved into this space or whatever, or they're gonna call the police, and now you have an increase in black people don't really police right there, right now. So now it's creating another issue. So just a couple of things, like I said, that was also like a theme in Native Son as well. And I really hate that there was no redemption arc for Bigger Thomas, who's the protagonist. Like he didn't learn anything, he didn't grow at all. And so if his audience, obviously, like I said, James Baldwin critiqued and said that, well, you didn't write this book for black people because we already know what we're going through. So white audiences are consuming this book en masse. And, so thinking about how they're going to perceive this does not do anything to help your cause. And so I really do appreciate that, even though that they were friends, James Baldwin held him accountable and wrote his own stuff. Like he wrote, like my boy wrote a whole essay collection about why
really
Richard Wright's book sucks.
Right.
You know? So I mean, but it was just like, you know, I do feel like escapism. So like, I really like this new wave of like Black people like being showcased in fantasy and like sci-fi and stuff like that, because it really like enters a world where Black people like are allowed to kind of like be themselves, be free and be themselves, you know, and they don't have to adhere to any stereotypes. And so that's why I'm really like into that. And even like in Lovecraft Country, I don't know if you watched it, but Lovecraft Country, they had a whole episode dedicated to the caricatures of like the Sambos, the Mammies, like all of those things, the Jezebels, those different things, right? And I really like that they kind of showcased that, and they were like, okay, this is not okay.
Right,
you know, so
I want a Harry Potter for Black people. That's all I'm saying. Like, I want a Harry Potter for Black people. There's this
book called Of Blood and Bones. Like, it's
oh my God, that's literally on my to buy list as far as books are concerned.
Like, and it's literally like Black Harry Potter, like. Because she's transphobic.
So, I have a Harry Potter tattoo, and me and my best friend have them. And after we found that out, we were like,
"Yeah."
So give me something else to cover it up with. You feel me? Like, don't put all your trust into books, people. Like, if you've learned nothing from this episode, books will lead you astray. You feel me? Yeah. So do your research. Don't get
what we talk about, and yes, you know, we talk about too, where we talk about Black film directors, producers, different things like that too. I think that Hollywood especially has taken to the idea of like, okay, we are going to be able to capitalize or monetize Black pain and Black trauma because people are going to talk about it regardless, right? Even if like essentially what we're doing right now, like there are going to be discussions about it on both sides. You know, like I remember like when Queen and Slim came out with.
I was about to bring up Miss Lena Waithe.
Yeah,
I was going to do it.
Now, Mama loves to write her a Black trauma story. Okay. Mama loves a Black trauma story.
But you know, she also did, what is the show, 20s on BET? Okay, and that was beautiful and fun. What's her name? Hallie, I think it's Hattie. Hattie is the main character. Yeah. Queer, free. I love her down. Like, she is it. You feel me? So I think, I don't know. I'm still a little on the fence about her because Queen and Slim did have me messed up all the way. I was like...
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, you know, like, I want... you know, Black directors particularly to know that you don't have to be a one-trick pony.
Right, for sure.
And yes, I get that this might be what makes you money, but there are other Black stories and other Black narratives to tell that don't have to focus on Black stereotypes. And I think that's basically what James Baldwin was really trying to tell his friend, like, you ain't have to do this, bro.
Right,
like, you did not have to go and tell them. You could have wrote about anything. Like, and this was a fictitious story. So like, you made this up. You made this up. You sat down and said, yeah, I'm going to write a story about a Black man who does not have a redemption arc and who's upset about being in poverty. And like, he just goes and kills these people. And then he ends up getting convicted, of course, as a Black man. And then he ends up like getting executed. And it's just like, and then he comes to terms with it too. Like, and it's just like, okay, but where's the growth? Like I was just literally
maybe him coming to terms with it was supposed to be the growth.
No. Like, I am definitely on James Baldwin type of time because, and like, I would have run like, why the fuck did you write this? Why the fuck did you write this book, bro? Like, why
it's
did you
him writing a whole book about it?
Like,
it's just like, actually, I hate this so much. I'm gonna get something published to let everybody know that I hate it.
Yeah. So like, I mean, even like just, it's just like the formula, like really just. I get it, the formula works for like Black trauma, but it's just like, please tell other stories, people. Please.
I'm currently looking up
looking at what?
His zodiac sign.
Oh,
because
listen.
That's not something a Scorpio would do. I personally am a Scorpio. Let's see. He's a Leo. He was a Leo.
I can't.
That makes sense because I'm like, who would write a whole book talking about how much they hated somebody else's book? But he was a Leo, so.
I mean, I'm not a Leo, but I probably wouldn't have written a book. Yeah. Like, but James Baldwin was clearly like a writer in himself, a renowned writer in himself. So, I mean, and then also I do like the idea that, even though I did think it's extra as hell that he did this, I do like the idea that there was some kind of pushback, and instead of it being something like an interview or a debate or him making a statement, like he chose what his craft was to respond to that. And that's something that, like, because again, we're still having those conversations today, about like the white savior complex, about Black people and their the struggles that they have or whatever, and how we monetize off of that, or how people monetize off of the Black struggle. So I like the fact that he wrote like something so we can go back and still reference that and still relevant today in 2022. So yeah.
Well, that's about it, I think.
Yeah. Child.
I know. I just had to look up his Zodiac. I'm sorry, because I was like, who would do this?
Also, I mean, definitely, I always when we do this podcast and we talk about different pieces in history and connecting it to today's issues as well. We're just speaking from our opinions as well. Absolutely. I always invite people, like even when I teach history as a teacher, I always invite people to do their own research and to form their own perspectives, because my perspective might be something else. But I really like the idea of doing this podcast, because we kind of like talk about a different perspective in history that's not always talked about, because Native Son is seen as a literary success, but people don't like to talk about like the James Baldwin dragging him part, and it's just like same. So I like looking at history from an unbiased, or at least in an aspect where we can look at all sides of what's going on with that too. But I think that's going to wrap up our episode for today. Did you have any final thoughts on anything?
No, but come back and see us for the next episode, because we'll be here all the time.
All right. I am Brando.
I'm Mia.
All right, and we will catch you guys next time.
Peace.
What up? It's your boy, Brando from the Bando. Actually, I'm from the suburbs, not the Bando, but that's okay. I'm here to say thanks for watching the Polaris Network on YouTube. For exclusive shows and premium content, subscribe to the Polaris Network on YouTube right now. Seriously, what are you doing? Go subscribe. Go do it right now.